The rise and toll of the blame culture abstract. This article examines the damaging rise of blame cultures in many organizations, where fear of failure, lack of psychological safety, and individual-focused reward systems incentivize employees to deflect responsibility rather than collaborate and learn from mistakes. The article outlines the significant costs of blame cultures, including stifled innovation, eroded trust, increased employee stress, and overall stagnation. To counter this, the article proposes research-backed strategies for leaders to cultivate a just culture of transparency, accountability, and continual improvement. Key tactics include leading by example, clarifying behavioral expectations, focusing investigations on systemic factors rather than individuals, and recognizing those who admit errors. Case studies from high-reliability industries like aviation and healthcare demonstrate how implementing just culture principles can transform organizational cultures and deliver lasting benefits. Ultimately, the article argues that moving beyond blame is essential for companies seeking sustainable excellence in today's competitive business landscape. In today's fast-paced, high-pressure business world, organizations are continually pushing to achieve greater results with fewer resources. While ambition and productivity are admirable goals, they often come at a cost if not approached carefully. One unintended byproduct of this environment is the rise of the blame culture within many companies. Rather than fostering collaboration, learning, and progress, blame cultures breed fear, retaliation, and stagnation. Today we will examine the roots of blame cultures, their detrimental impacts, and offers research-backed strategies that leaders can implement to shift toward a just culture of accountability, transparency, and cooperation instead. Origins of the blame culture. Several factors have enabled the rise of blame cultures in organizations over recent decades. Key among them are pressure to perform. In competitive industries and a global economy, leaders feel intense pressure to deliver continuous growth and profits. This often leads them and their direct reports to adopt a results at any cost mindset that prioritizes short-term wins over long-term sustainability. Fear of failure. Associated with the pressure to perform is an underlying fear of failure, both professional failure and personal failure as a leader. This fear unconsciously drives many to protect themselves by blaming others preemptively when problems arise. Lack of psychological safety. Organizational structures and leadership styles that do not cultivate trust. Open communication and learning from failure severely limit employees' willingness to take risks, admit mistakes, and raise concerns freely. Edmondson, 1999. Reward systems focused on the individual. Performance evaluation and incentive systems that judge and reward individuals rather than team or company-wide success incentivize selfish, competitive behaviors rather than collaboration. Trevino et al. 2003. Confirmation bias. Leaders and employees alike naturally gravitate toward information that confirms their existing beliefs and priorities. In a blame culture, this bias causes one to overlook their own culpability and exaggerate others' failures. Desire for control. Passing blame outwards satisfies a primal human desire to believe one is in control of outcomes and events, despite inherent uncertainties in any system. It maintains an illusion of control. Together, these dynamics have allowed blame cultures to fester and spread unchecked within some organizations. Yet their detrimental impacts come at great cost, as research shows. The toll of blame cultures at both the individual and organizational level. Placing blame damages performance, relationships, well-being, and long-term success in measurable ways. Fear of blame discourages risk-taking, learning from mistakes, and speaking up about problems, stifling innovation. Argyris, 1976. Cooper, 2000. It destroys psychological safety and trust between colleagues, severely limiting cooperation, knowledge sharing, and team effectiveness, Edmondson. 1999. Sitkin et al. 2011. Retaliation and infighting distract from strategic priorities and drain resources through interpersonal conflict, Trevino and Weaver. 2001. Employees experience higher stress, lowered job satisfaction, and increased burnout under constant pressure to avoid or deflect blame. Dollard and Barlow, 1990. Maslach and Leiter, 2008. Transgressors are less willing to report errors or near misses, compromising opportunities for improvement, Reason. 2000. Week and Sutcliffe, 2007. Over time, a head-down, cover-your-ass mentality leads to stagnation. Complacency and lack of ownership or accountability, Trevino et al. 2003. Talented individuals often leave to find a more just and psychologically safe work culture elsewhere, Cooper. 2000. Clearly, the costs of a blame culture tremendously outweigh any perceived short-term benefits. Leaders must recognize its toxicity and take deliberate steps to establish a culture of transparency, accountability and learning instead. Shifting to a just culture research offers guidance on how leaders can start shifting away from a blame culture and build a high-performing, just culture focused on continual learning and improvement. Key strategies include setting an example from the top. Leaders must model accountability, transparency and willingness to learn from mistakes through their own words and actions. They should treat errors as opportunities rather than threats. Clarifying behavioral expectations, establish clear guidelines around what types of behaviors will and will not be tolerated, e.g. reckless negligence versus honest mistakes, to reduce uncertainty and target remedial efforts appropriately. Focusing investigations on systems, when incidents do occur. The emphasis should be on understanding root causes and system weaknesses rather than targeting individuals to blame. Learning supersedes finger-pointing. Ensuring fair disciplinary processes, employees must trust that the disciplinary process itself will be impartial, consistent and fair. Bias or favoritism destroys that trust. Recognizing humble admissions, publicly acknowledge and reward those who come forward about mistakes, close calls or weaknesses, not just successes. This incentivizes transparency. Implementing just culture training, educate all employees on just culture principles and guidelines for expected conduct to establish shared behavioral norms and psychological safety. Measuring progress, not perfection. Focus performance management on continual growth and progress against prior results rather than unrealistic expectations of zero errors that encourage cover-ups. Highlighting successes from lessons learned, show how the organization has incorporated insights from past problems or mistakes into improvements, demonstrating that learning is valued over blame. These evidence-based strategies can reform organizational norms and culture when applied consistently in context of specific industries and companies. The following section demonstrates how. Application within industries. Aviation industry example. No industry has more successfully implemented principles of a just culture than commercial aviation. Airlines today are far safer than ever before due to a relentless focus on learning from mistakes rather than blame. Some specific tactics used include voluntary safety reporting programs. Pilots, air traffic controllers and others can anonymously submit reports on incidents or close calls without fear of reprisal. This provides a wealth of data to identify vulnerabilities. Use of non-punitive language. Investigations seek to determine what happened rather than who's at fault through open-minded, collaborative fact-finding. Systems-based analysis. The root causes of incidents are traced to environmental factors, equipment issues, work conditions rather than individuals alone. Behavior-based guidelines. Training defines the difference between reckless actions warranting discipline versus excusable human errors from competent professionals. Leader involvement. CEOs participate in safety boards and investigations to model the priority of transparency over secrecy or defensiveness at the highest levels. This has created a culture where crews unapologetically share lessons without fear of being grounded for well-intentioned slip-ups, resulting in unprecedented safety records. Healthcare example. In healthcare too, organizations have attained groundbreaking results by adopting principles of just culture. For instance, morbidity and mortality conferences, medical staff freely discuss complications and adverse events in a non-threatening environment focused on learning as peers. Not blame. Honest problem-solving replaces cover-ups. Minimum blame-based language in forms reports. Phrasing emphasizes care processes rather than personal negligence to encourage open participation. Frontline input in reforms. Doctors and nurses directly involved in incidents collaborate on solutions. Feeling ownership over improvements versus defensiveness. Leadership walk-rounds. Executives conduct informal ward rounds to demonstrate caring. Listen to concerns and normalize transparency rather than top-down discipline. This has enabled early detection and resolution of systemic weaknesses before tragedies. Improved patient outcomes and staff well-being substantially in pioneering hospitals. Conclusion. Blame cultures breed fear, damage performance and ruin opportunities to strengthen organizations through shared learning. But with deliberate efforts informed by research, leaders can redirect their companies towards a just culture defined by fairness, accountability and continual progress instead of blame. By establishing clear behavior expectations, investigating root causes, ensuring impartial processes and recognition for admitting mistakes, blame gradually gives way to cooperation and a relentless drive for safe operations. The experiences of high-reliability industries prove a just culture approach does not compromise standards, it elevates them through engaged employees working as a team rather than adversaries. Overall, moving beyond blame is essential for organizations seeking sustainable excellence in today's world.